Doesn't it seem like most people are just horrible today? I mean, if you turn on the news, you see the riots happening, you see all the craziness that's going down. You get on social media and it doesn't matter if it's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Of course, Twitter's the worst because of the anonymity, but it just seems like people are freaking terrible, doesn't it? Well, in today's episode, we're going to talk about why we forget that most people are good and that this perception that we're having is just that. It's a perception. It's an experience. And we're going to talk about why you're actually creating that for yourself. And we're going to talk about how to do things a little bit differently. What is up, my friend? I'm health expert, can't speak English today. Health expert Ted Rice, coach to CEOs, executives, and other high-performing professionals. And welcome to the Legendary Life Podcast. What we do is we break down science-based information on how to lose fat, prevent disease, and live a longer, healthier, legendary life. Now, on Real Talk Fridays, we set the science aside and we talk about real life. Like today, we're going to be talking about this idea, why this perception. It's just, you talk to people and people say, oh man, just people are just, oh, I hate people. I like animals more. Or what is our world coming to, right? But we're going to talk about why that's not really the case. So if you're interested in this conversation, or if you like what you're hearing so far, make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts so that every time one of my episodes goes live, you'll be the first to know. And if you've been listening for a while and you really appreciate what the entire Legendary Life team brings to you every single week, because yes, it's not just me, I'm just the guy on the mic. There's a whole team that works together to bring you these episodes, and they've got to put up with listening to me. And sometimes I'm late with the episodes and they do things last minute. So this team, they really work hard to bring you these episodes on time every single week. And if they're ever not on time, by the way, it's my fault. So again, best way to compliment us, the team here at Legendary Life, is to leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts, especially if it's iTunes. iTunes reviews really count. It helps more people find the podcast. And it's, again, the best way to compliment what we do here. So let's get into it today. And I want to give you a little bit behind the scenes. So when I first got onto social media, I didn't use it for business like I do today. I used it for myself. And, I try to, we're always trying to be cool on social media. So I post things, I'd try to post songs that I'm listening to. I'd post selfies, silly stuff mostly. And I didn't really understand how social media worked. Years and years and years and years later, I have a totally different perspective on it, because I'll be honest with you. I'm on social media, and really I'm on this podcast to do two things. Number one, I want to help people. That's number one. That's why I'm here. It's my mission in life. I've suffered a lot in my life. And if I can help people suffer less, if I can help prevent some of that suffering or end some of that suffering or lessen some of that suffering, that is what I'm here to do. That's my mission in life. The second part is to make money. I'm not a trust fund baby. I've worked very hard, so I need to get paid. As simple as that. So those are the two reasons why I'm on social media. Now, so I want to say that because two reasons. Well, one, because it's true, but the other is that when you take that perspective, so a lot of people try to post things on social media for various reasons, but when I post on social media, I have a business perspective. And what does that mean? It doesn't just mean my mindset. It means I understand the algorithm. Okay. I understand the algorithm. I understand human psychology better. I'm not thinking about what other people are thinking about. Okay. And I've got mixed emotions about social media. So I understand it very well. I understand how it works. Most people do not. For example, someone posted on Twitter the other day that they don't take money for retweets, right? In other words, this person who I follow on Twitter, he's another fitness guy, I forget his name, but he gets hit up by people asking for retweets and offering to pay him money. And he said that, and it was so funny. It's interesting, rather, how many people just started writing, commenting, and saying, "Wow, people actually pay you to retweet or ask to be retweeted and offer to pay you? That's crazy." It's like, whoa, you're on Twitter, you're probably on here a lot, you don't even know what's going on. Another thing that people don't realize is, take this into account. Let's say you're scrolling and you see your friend and they're showing a picture of their new puppy. You're like, oh, how cute. I'll give that a love, or maybe a like, or maybe a care, or whatever you're into if you're on Facebook. And then you keep scrolling, and let's say someone says something that you disagree with politically, and you read it and, ooh, triggered, right? Which is actually your nervous system runs kind of high. Stress hormones get released, you're triggered. And you probably shouldn't comment, but you're in a bit of a mood. Maybe you didn't sleep well last night. Maybe you got into an argument. Maybe the whole COVID craziness has just irritated you. And you know what? You find yourself posting and you get into this political debate where you're not going to change the other person's mind. You're not going to change your mind. And you're just in this heated debate, right? What's interesting is we don't comment on the things that we like. Sometimes we do, but more often, at least people collectively, and to be honest, I should have looked to see if there's data on this, because I bet there is. I know for 100% that there is, but I don't know if it's, Facebook releases it. But anyway, here's how this works. So let's say your friend with the dog, you left a like or a love or a care or whatever, but you didn't comment. Now there's a hierarchy, and then this other comment, this political comment that you disagreed with, that incensed you, that triggered you. You left a comment there. In fact, you went back and forth maybe 4 or 5 times. Like I saw one of my Facebook friends recently did that. They made a political post, and sure enough, it turned into an argument, and they're going back and forth, going back and forth. Here's how the algorithm works, folks. That picture that you liked or loved or cared, and this works the same if you're on Instagram or on Twitter, but you're not going to see it as much. Or the things that let's say you scrolled and you didn't even like or comment or retweet or whatever, doesn't matter what social media you use. You're like, oh, that's so cool. Oh, maybe you watch a short video. What happens is, whatever social media platform you're using, it's like, oh, this dude or woman, dudette, doesn't like that. I mean, they watch the video because they know how long you stare at something, right? How long you hover on something, right? They're called Facebook impressions, in case you didn't know, or Twitter impressions. But the thing that you commented on, and that you commented on again and again and again, getting into that exchange, you're going to see that more now, right? You're going to see that person more now, and Facebook is going to show you more of their posts. That's how Facebook works. In fact, I use these strategies to build my business. I made a lot of money on Facebook organically, not running ads. I lost a lot of money running ads, actually, but I made it all back and more using the Facebook algorithm and some other strategies to market to people who I thought would be good potential customers or potential candidates for my week-long challenge, the coronavirus comeback challenge. If you happen to have joined it, you know how good it was. And then also those people, some of those people always become clients because they get such great results. And hopefully you did that, because I don't even think we may never run one of those again. Things are changing here at Legendary Life. So what I'm trying to establish by sharing this with you is I do understand how the algorithm works. I know how to game it. I know how to game it specifically to help my business. If I wanted to be a douchebag about it, I could really I could spread a lot of negativity. It's just not really my thing to do. I'm more interested in helping people, like I said, helping people and also running a successful business. If you didn't know I was into capitalism, well, now you know. Conscious capitalism, folks, conscious capitalism. We do a lot of charity work that we never talk about, to be honest, but we're into capitalism. So what I'm trying to say is this is working against a lot of people. And part of this is, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about this idea that one bad apple spoils the bunch. So imagine, if you will, if you measured how much time people spend online, you'd also find that they become more cynical. And people who are online all day, every day, likely believe humanity is just one, they say things like, oh my God, can you believe people? Can you believe what they do? Can you believe what people do in this world? Can you believe what's happening wherever? And it gives you this impression that that isolated small event is actually representative of the larger whole. Are you picking up what I'm putting down here? One of the reasons for this is that the internet is so broad and massive and anonymous that it's really hard to get a sense of who you're dealing with. When you're in conversations, we get viral videos and they're out of context. And it feels like everywhere you go online, there's always some dumb argument happening that's infuriating. And as a result, you get this warped sense that the entire planet is filled with these keyboard warriors that just argue. And even though they're trying to make a point, they're just so emotionally charged. The point gets lost in the vitriol. And you're like, oh my God, how are people ever going to come together and work together again to make something happening? Make something happen, right? How are we going to come together and do what needs to be done? Because, right, that's what needs to happen. More people need to come together to make things work. If you're too busy arguing, that is how things don't get done. Now, one thing I want to remind you of is that there's a negativity bias to human beings. We've got to get this in our heads. We've got to develop self-awareness about this if we want to regulate our emotions in this new world that we live in, where the cesspool is really online. But if you go outside and talk to your neighbors and talk to the people around, maybe some of you have bad neighbors. Someone told me, someone was sharing some negative neighbor stories with me not too long ago, and it had to do with politics, by the way. But that's just one little story. But why do we pay so much attention to the negative stuff? Why do we pay attention to the one negative neighbor? Why do we pay so much attention to the one comment, the one post out of all the posts that we saw that captured our attention? But it was negative attention. It triggered us. It got us angry. It infuriated us. Why does that happen? Human beings have this negativity bias. And this is another example of how what evolutionary biologists would call a gene-environment mismatch. We've got this wiring, this negativity bias, because it used to keep us alive. We were looking for threats. That's what the negativity bias is about. That's what the experts believe it's about. We're looking for threats. Because why? Because back in the day, and when I mean the day, I mean the Paleolithic days, that could be a big deal. You could have trouble with the weather, with the environment. There is a hurricane coming. I lived in Miami for many, many years, and they didn't have Doppler radar back in the Paleolithic days, nor electric light or Facebook or many other things we have, right? So there was no Doppler radar. It's like, and also if there's a predator stalking you, if there's, you got to be in touch with that stuff. You got to pay attention to that stuff, because if you don't, your genes didn't get passed on because you didn't make it. So fast forward to today, where it's, I don't know what you call this. It's definitely not Paleolithic. It's this digital craziness that we've created. And there's a lot of good to it.
I mean, I've been able to build my business. I come to you every week. I hope I do a great job, or at least a good job in helping you, help motivating you, help teaching you, help moving you, helping you to move forward in life, whatever that means to you. Because that's why I'm here, right? But the other side is that our negativity bias, it's no longer, we don't need to worry about whether or not we're going to see the hurricane coming. We got the Doppler radar. You keep returning to that because I'm from Miami. But there's other things that help detect tsunamis and earthquakes and other things. I guess fires are a lot harder to predict. I don't know, not an expert, don't know much about it. Only been to California a handful of times. But the point is this. We're not worried about the crazy weather or the catastrophes or, the wars or the marauding or pillaging. We are now online getting stressed about, we're like online on Facebook, watching the news, maybe listening to podcasts like political podcasts, political talk, and we're getting incensed over it. We're creating this stress for ourselves. And again, why do we keep coming back to it? Well, there's part of it is the negativity bias. There's also a addictive quality to it. If you know anyone, and you know me, I've had some substance problems in my 20s. I smoked a lot of marijuana in my 20s. It was very hard for me to kick. I was so dependent on it. It was the thing. I didn't meditate. I didn't do other things that I do now to help control my stress levels. I smoked weed. And it got to the point where weed it helped me initially, but then it wasn't so much fun anymore. And I used to go out and party a lot. And it was so fun when I started going out and drinking, even when I would get sick and vomit, those stupid days that you may or may not have had in your 20s. But eventually it got old. I wasn't getting the payoff anymore. I wasn't getting the pleasure from it, but I still wanted to do it. There was this addictive quality. So it's two things happening, right? We get hooked on, first we have that negativity bias, and then we get hooked on it. And we can most likely have an addiction to anything that triggers our dopamine system, right? And dopamine is not about the pleasure that comes from other chemicals like enkephalins, endorphins, anandamide. Dopamine is about seeking. It's about seeking. If you've ever oh God, I got to buy that car, that piece of clothing, the shoes, the belt, whatever it is. And then you buy it. You're like, yeah, okay, whatever. But the seeking part was really intense. But once you got it, you're like, that didn't really give me the payoff that I was hoping. So there is another reason why we're more cynical online. And it comes down to to that saying that I said, one bad apple spoils a bunch, right? And there was actually some research by data scientists in Stanford that found that, now you may not be on Reddit. I'm not. I've been on there, off of there, but Reddit's super popular with many people. But these data scientists found that 74% of the conflicts on Reddit were instigated by only 1% of the users. And worse than that, the researchers found that most of these online conflicts were not fought by those who started them. They were fought by people who kind of got sucked into it. Someone made a triggering comment or post, and then the battles happened by the people who did not leave the comment, right? And this isn't new. It plays out in the real world as well. So if you watch, we used to talk about the news. People are, I think, watching the news less and less. Again, sorry for not being up to date on my statistics there, but it's really not my area of expertise. But what I did find is this: research finds that 1% of people are convicted of 63% of the violent crimes. So but what does the news show us? It shows the violence that happens. And for the 24-hour channels, and I don't care which one you watch, it shows it for 24 hours. It shows the same thing all the time. Think about when a mass shooting happens. Thankfully, those, at least they haven't been, we don't even know. I don't even know if they've been happening because it's all about the coronavirus and the Capitol and the politics. Who knows? Maybe there's some shootings that happen. We don't even know about it because the news the news realizes that our negativity bias, we're more attracted to the the politics and the instability and the craziness, the uncertainty of the coronavirus situation and the politicization of it than a shooting in a town that we'll probably never ever visit in our whole entire lives. But anyway, the point is this: research finds that 1% of people are convicted of 63% of violent crimes. And when it comes down to sexual assaults, a paper that I saw recently suggests that it's only a small minority of men that commit these sexual assaults. And when it comes to overt acts of racism, there is a new paper out that shows between 5 to 20% of people account for those acts of racism. It isn't everyone. It's not everyone's racist, right? Again, overt acts of racism. So if you consider that it's really, the point is this here, right? If you consider that it's only a small minority of people who are doing this bad stuff, this really bad stuff, but those are the ones that stand out more in our minds due to the negativity bias, then it also follows that these small minority of people have much more influence, a disproportionate level of influence on our social experiences, on our general perception of humanity, and our stress levels. And again, I'm here to remind you, most people are good. It's just the bad ones that you hear about all the time. Or you're hanging out in circles like I do, and I'm guilty of this. I'm not pointing the finger at you at all. I'm just, being honest here, right? If you're on Twitter, that's a rough place to be. And I'll tell you, I've been spending more time on there than I really should because I'm trying to get into it and use Twitter more because I'm not going to bore you with details about my social media, the social media strategy that we're using, but I've been spending more time there and I'm just like, oh man, I've got to just turn it off. So I'm not a Twitter user. My favorite is Facebook and Instagram, but Twitter's interesting because you can reach a lot more people much more easily than Instagram or Facebook, right? So what I'm trying to say is this bad stuff, it's always been going on. And I'll tell you, I've traveled to many different countries, not just traveled, okay? I didn't stay at the Four Seasons in these places. I stayed in nice places, but I also was in situations where I got to mingle with the local people, right? You'd be surprised. I'm in Brazil right now. People are so nice to me here. Now, there's a lot of violence here in Brazil. It's not a place. What they say is it's not a beginner country when it comes to traveling South America. And, with the coronavirus, even though Brazil has a more conservative president and isn't doing lockdowns anymore, or not for the foreseeable future, there's a lot of people who are desperate, right? So what I'm trying to say is this: one of the major shifts in our experience of stress and negativity as it pertains to what's going on in the world is the level of exposure and frequency of exposure, I would say as well, to this negative stuff. Think about this. Think about how you had to wait to get the news. If you're a newspaper reader and my dad read the newspaper, I never got into it, but you would have to wait for the paper to be printed to get the news. And so something would happen a few days ago, a week ago, and then you would finally find out about it when it was printed in the paper. And then the news came along, and then you'd find out about it faster, and then they'd play it nonstop for hours and hours and hours, the same story over and over and over, different angles, like it's a football game. You want to talk about the football game before the game, during the game, after the game, and keep talking about it. It's like the news is like in politics, it's like sports for people who are not that into sports, or for sports when people aren't watching sports. It's what they do, right? So, but now with social media, something happens and within seconds, boom, because it's on Twitter, it's gone viral. It's on Facebook, it's gone viral. It's on Instagram, it's gone viral. So think about that. Think about how that's changed. Many of you like me, have lived through it. And if you're on the younger side, I don't know how many people in their 20s listen to this, you've never known anything else. That's why we're getting triggered so much. But again, it's these things that I think are really important to talk about, because think about this. You can work out a lot, twice a day, every day. You can eat a perfect diet. But if you're getting a lot of stress in your life, especially, and I don't want to call it self-created, but because of the exposure of negativity, negative messages, negative events from social media, from 24-hour news channels, etc., probably not from the papers anymore, you can't be healthy, right? Psychologically, it's going to take a toll on you. And we know how stress shows up in our system. We know that the outside gets inside. We know there's a cost to exposing yourself to this stuff. So I want you to think about that. I want you to think about everything that I've talked about so far. How does it apply to you? So funny, one of the things that I do with clients is that I ask them about their social media habits, especially if people complain of not having enough time. I can't track my nutrition. I don't have the time to do that. I can't work out. Don't have the time to do that. Cool. By the way, how much do you use social media? Oh, yeah, not much. I'm on there now on and off, but not that much. Okay, cool. But let's just look at your phone. And so we get some solid data here. And sure enough, without fail, people always spend more time. In fact, that's a good thing to do for yourself. To answer that question for yourself, then go check how much time you're spending on social media. Depending on the type of phone you have, figure it out, go on there, look at how many hours you're spending on social media and which ones you're spending it on. Because again, you can't out-exercise the stress from all this exposure. You can't eat superfoods and expect the toxicity of what we get exposed to these days to be offset. It's not going to happen. It's too much. And so that's why I constantly coach my clients on this. Manage your exposure to negative information, negative events, etc. Basically, manage your exposure to social media. I mean, it's so interesting. People on Twitter, they'll talk about toxic foods and toxic this and toxins in our environment. And it's like, you're toxic. And this place it can be toxic. Twitter, especially, because you end up seeing it and we'll talk about this in a bit. I urge you to create, as a lot of people say, oh, don't create an echo chamber. It's like, what are you talking about? Create an echo chamber for yourself. Create an echo chamber of positive things. Now, we're not talking about creating an echo chamber of, you have some beliefs and you don't want to challenge them and all you want to hear is confirmation for your bias. We're not talking about that type of echo chamber here. We're talking about creating an echo chamber of positivity, right? An echo chamber of things that are going to inspire you, things that are going to make you laugh. That's good too. One of the things that I'm working on, I don't want to scare people anymore, right? With scary statistics. I want to use more humor. I want to challenge myself to use more humor and also to be more inspirational, to be more positive, because the last thing I want to do is to scare you into doing things, because what does fear actually do for us? For most people, it just raises stress. And what does stress do? Let's say you're trying to quit smoking and someone's telling you about the statistics and showing you those messed up lungs that smokers have after the autopsy. They're all black and disgusting. And here's the thing. It scares them, but it also stresses them. And they end up probably, oh man, I need a cigarette after hearing those stats and looking at that lung. What about being obese? It's like, man, that was rough. Hearing those stats and hearing about coronavirus and being obese. I need to go eat some food to kind of take the edge off, or maybe drink some alcohol to take the edge off, or maybe smoke a little herb to take the edge off. I want you to think about this stuff. I want you to think about it in terms of your life. And one thing that I want to urge you to do is I want you to block and unfollow or even unfriend anybody and everybody who is toxic online. Okay? Harder to do on Twitter, easier to do on Instagram, easy to do on Facebook. I want you, whenever, instead of engaging in that argument about politics that never goes anywhere, if it's a family member or someone that you want to stay in touch with, unfollow them. But if it's some random or somebody that you used to know in high school, but it's been a few decades and they offer no value to your life and they only comment on your stuff when they're triggered by it instead of saying anything positive, unfriend them. Hell, block them if you want. Get rid of negativity in your life. It is not doing anything for you. And I'll tell you again, the other thing that I want to get in, that I want to talk about again is the addictive quality. Because again, you see like, oh, look at so-and-so's cute baby. Oh, look, the Joneses got a puppy. Oh, yeah, that's nice. Oh, someone said that, someone said something about immigration, or someone said something about the vaccines, or someone said something about, that's what gets you triggered. That's what you end up wanting to comment on or stress out about, or maybe you're like me sometimes. I don't comment or like or love or anything, but I'll read the exchange, right? I'm totally guilty of this stuff too. But what I do is I just unfollow them. In fact, I'm going to unfollow someone right now as we're talking, because although I appreciate them, they're just engaging in these discussions that go nowhere. They don't do anything because it's just too much. You can't have a real conversation with respect, or you can online, but it's very difficult, right? The nuance gets lost. The body language gets lost. The vocal tonality gets lost. That was sarcasm, but I didn't get it because it's, and people aren't that good at writers. I'm not either, right? Not good at writing comments sometimes. I come across as more cold than I actually am. That's why I like this, because, people know how ridiculous I am, right? So that's what I want to share with you. That's what I want you to take action on. Remember, the silent majority, they never get brought up. The people who are cool, who are keeping their heads, on straight, who are not falling into this stuff, at least not toxically, right? Not in a toxic way. You're not going to hear from them. You're not going to hear about them. But just remember, they're the decent, relatively, if not highly intelligent, well-meaning people who are lurking, waiting, feeling, and experiencing just as much frustration, exasperation, craziness, like, oh my gosh, feeling as you are. All right? So don't forget that is really who's out there. That is really the majority of the population. Keep that in mind, folks. All right? And again, after listening to this, what actions can you take? In fact, go to your phones right now. Unfollow people. Scroll through the feed. Unfollow people. Block people. Unfriend people. Be ruthless with this. Be ruthless protecting your stress levels, protecting your mind, because you know what? You've got goals that you need to accomplish, or that let's say you want to accomplish. Maybe some you need to. How is that helping you? If it's not, get rid of it. Create the echo chamber. Create the tunnel vision. Don't let people tell you differently. Talking online, people aren't doing anything. People aren't donating money or support. I mean, some people are for sure, but a lot of people, they don't even take action. They just post nasty stuff or argumentative stuff or whine online. They don't do anything. And if that's you right now, it's cool. Just stop doing it, right? Or work on quitting the habit, right? It's the new smoking. Social media, negative social media use is the new smoking. It's really not, folks, but I'm just making a joke there. Take action. Do it right now. And then just as an experiment, and see how you feel in a week. All right, that's what I want to leave you with. Hope you enjoyed this today. Hope you have an amazing weekend. Love you. Speak soon. Enjoy your weekend.